Stormy conditions in the Gulf of Mexico this afternoon into northern Florida. Some more cold air coming down through the eastern U.S. and very pleasant warm weather in the southwestern states. Great to have you all back here once again. Let's start out with a surface map of the central U.S. showing this large ridge from Wisconsin down to North Texas. On the east side of that, you can see the northerly flow. Also got this cold core low across western Arkansas and Oklahoma. In that area, would not be surprised to see a few flurries producing some minor accumulations. In the southeastern U.S., MCS from southern Georgia through the Tallahassee area down into the Gulf. Some thunderstorms with that, and we've had a few advisories for strong storms in the Jacksonville area. There's how it looks as we record this. Low pressure just west of Jacksonville. Some strong storms from Jacksonville south, and then a more stratified, congested, kind of a broken area of storms further to the west. We had on the station plots using AWIPS here. This is a tool used by the Weather Service. This is their backbone weather display system. You can see the very sultry conditions, 82 over 65 around Orlando. Much the same in the north part of the peninsula, and then we start getting back into the rain-cooled air. That's going to be mostly to the north of that line right there. So you see those humid conditions down there, dew points in the upper 60s, and then transitioning off to cooler air with temperatures in the mid-60s. There's how it looked around 9 o'clock this morning, the front and an old MCS up to the north, and this is all tropical air as we get the sunlight working its magic, cumulus spreading and developing, and you can see the cloud streets indicating the low-level wind flow, and these clouds are getting quite vertical already, so we're up to about 11 a.m. and of course some of those cumulus clouds become cumulonimbus, and we see that right about there. Towers developing around the Jacksonville area, towering cumulus further south, and some of those clouds grow further and mature into thunderstorms. And that's where we're at right now, the isolated convection out here and the more organized convection off to the west. So that's how it looks on visible satellite imagery. Working our way back to the west, we get back behind the front, which is out in this area here, back into the drier air where we have northerly flow. You can see the clouds clear out a little bit. This is mostly cirrus and maybe a little bit of altocumulus. And then you can see this gap here of fair skies from Alexandria up to Memphis. And then we get back into more clouds off to the west. And there's a look at that. Definitely a mix of forcing and convection. The convective elements right in this area here, that's mostly elevated. And that's going to be in close proximity to the cooler temperatures aloft. And there it is, that upper level low dropping south through Oklahoma into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the white colors, that's going to be the colder temperatures, down to minus 30 Celsius. And this little pink right here, those are specks of about minus 32 to minus 34 at 500 millibars, which is up at about 18,000 feet. So we can drop a SCU-T in the middle of that, and there it is. You can see that cold column all the way up to 18,000 feet. This here looks like the tropopause and the stratosphere above that. So that's going to be right around 18,000 feet, which is pretty low. That tropopause has folded down and under the jet, and that folding is acting down and underneath that jet. However, there's not much moisture in the low levels. This is going to be the surface dew point, a little sliver of 40s dew points in southwestern Arkansas, and there's a little bit of mid-level moisture back in this region, and that's helping to support wet clouds and precipitation that we do have. But that influx of cold, dry air underneath that cold pool is helping to prevent a lot of this from producing extensive precip. Working our way west, a beautiful day in the southwestern states. We do have a lot of viewers around Tucson and a couple up there along the Mogollon Rim. You can see there's been some snowfall over the past week, including out around Tucumcari, Santa Rosa, Klein's Corner, little snowfield right there. And that's not in the mountains. The mountains are located here. That's going to be the Sangre de Cristos. This is all in the plains, the high plains of New Mexico. And that's part of that last system that moved through the area. Yeah, it looks nice in the southwestern U.S. Let's continue into California. And yes, we do have a little system working down the coast. There it is. Typical comet cloud appearance. On the backside, we've got this open cell cumulus indicating cold air advection feeding into the back of that system. Cold front going to be roughly, I think that I actually had that on the surface map further out east because there was a gradient of thickness kind of in that area. I think you could make a case for the cold front being here, but you know, we have to go through and look at all the data. So the San Joaquin Valley looking pretty fair this afternoon. Not much moisture associated with this system. And these surface plots, they're kind of indeterminate. I can see northwesterly flow kind of like that, but some very warm conditions in the southern San Joaquin Valley, almost 70 degrees at Fresno. I'm not really sure. I think I might put that front kind of in this area here. Let's take a look at that surface map. Well, we've definitely picked up on that system. You can see the strong thickness gradient back in here. However, I think maybe some of that gradient has outrun that front. I might have to correct that front somewhat like that. And some of the thickness gradient out ahead, that could be just some of the mid-level cold advection spreading out over the low-level weather fields. Anyway, that's just a guess. That does deserve more analysis. Up to the north, though, in Canada, a mild pattern, temperatures rising significantly into the 40s. So that's going to be a warm downslope flow. Then heading up into Alaska, a stormy pattern in the Aleutians, blizzard conditions in the Bering Sea. Let's take a tour of the web cameras in Alaska. This is going to be Ahkun Island near Dutch Harbor in the Aleutians. That's on the edge of that blizzard, a little closer to the warm air. You can see a lot of stratus there hanging over the hills. That's how it looks at Anchorage. Kind of a threatening sky there. Looks like nimbostratus. Further north, near Fairbanks, Esther Dome, looks very wintry. In fact, that looks like an ice accumulation on that tower. And that's a little further east around Central, kind of close to the border with Yukon. And this is Honolulu, Alaska. Never heard of that place, but that's going to be Denali, about 40 to 50 miles away. And there's the real Honolulu, at least as close as I could get. That's going to be close to Schofield Barracks, northwest of Honolulu. And we see cumulus and some rather warm conditions. The Arctic front still in the same place as usual. The air mass centered across Victoria Island into Nunavut. Not much extent with that. The coldest temperature on here looks like minus 36 at Cambridge Bay. And some of that is heading south, but recurving into the Hudson Bay region, and that'll affect mostly Quebec and Ontario. And in the Maritimes, there goes an outgoing system. It dumped a little bit of freezing rain around Montreal before the cold advection worked in, but freezing rain still coming down from Prince Edward Island out to Newfoundland. So here's the key to what's happening. This is going to be the upper level dynamics at 500 millibars. This is the mid-levels of the troposphere, and you're looking at a chart here for 6 p.m. Central Time. So there's that upper level low across Dallas-Fort Worth with cold temperatures right there in that center, and a similar situation off the coast of northwestern California. Ridging from Arizona up into the North Plains, so no wonder they're getting some fair weather. The polar jet runs from the middle of the Pacific around this low in California, and then it kind of splits off a little bit. One segment across the northeastern states, another one down there in Texas and across Georgia and Alabama. That's helping to augment some of those storms in the southeastern states. So let's see how things work out over the next couple of days, it is a progressive pattern. Even though we have these cutoff lows, the cutoff lows, they do sometimes break off and spin and just sit there. It looks like that one that came out of Texas is ejecting to the east. The other one looks like it's trying to burrow in. So it sits down there around Arizona and California for a couple of days, and finally by Monday it starts marching eastward across the Rockies, and that'll bring another round of storms and showers to Texas and Oklahoma. And then another strong disturbance drops in on the backside of that long wave trough, and the jet associated with that is going to be running about like that. They follow the tightest gradient of vorticity and the tightest gradient of the height lines. So that pretty much puts it right in that area. So that's going to be the jet. And that whole ball of wax moves into the Rockies for Wednesday and Thursday. So another round of inclement weather across the Central Plains. This will be just a little bit further north, and probably some significant warm air advection up into the Midwest for later in the week. Another cutoff low off the coast of California, there it is. And that breaks off and sits out there. And you probably noticed the strong energy in the southeastern U.S. There could be a round of significant severe weather down there, either on Thursday or Friday. The Thursday map is looking like that. That's going to be the day before the dynamics, and sometimes those are the big ones. And this definitely has the indication of moisture being in place. And then on Friday we get the big dynamics. If an MCS has not moved in already, it will be moving in at this time. So it looks like kind of a turbulent time of the week next week, and hopefully we're not going to get much severe weather from that. At least I hope. And then we open up this northwesterly flow, so it looks like a period of somewhat cooler than normal conditions. This is what the surface charts are looking like next Thursday, and that does indicate probably the biggest severe weather is going to be on Thursday. So that's going to be the frontal boundary. The dynamics, the strongest ones are in the wake of that, of course. So a little bit of a antifront setup. And then going into Friday itself, yeah, things are sweeping eastward, and that will shift the threat of severe weather out to the coast. Anyway, let's back that up and look at the entire country. So the current conditions right now, that's where we're at, and there's that big ridge we talked about on the opening clip, the downslope flow in the Canadian prairies, the high plains, and the northerly flow in the eastern U.S. And, oh yeah, California, they've got that low pressure area there. The model thinks it's in northwestern California or northeastern California, and the cold front, if you're going by the model, yeah, that would be something like that. So going forward, what do we see here? A little bit of cyclogenesis there in Colorado. Down here in California, that looks like the low pressure system working down through the valleys and into the deserts. And then we see this other system there in Florida. The warm front definitely apparent, the cold front extending just west of Tampa. So let's look for the next big change. Well, we've got this coastal low working up through the Carolinas for Sunday. That's it right there. The front moving slowly through Florida. We organized the backside of that other front there in Texas. Out here in West Texas is a warm front, and that kind of connects back up into that other system right there. So kind of this wedge of warm air across New Mexico and El Paso. And looks like that kind of loses definition. Don't see much of it towards Tuesday or Wednesday. And it looks like maybe by late Tuesday it starts coming together. There's one wave right there. I'd bet there's another wave in Colorado. And it looks like the front is reorganizing out here in Nevada. So that's kind of the setup right there. So we're getting close to that severe weather in the southeastern U.S. And that appears to be it right there. System coming out of the southwestern U.S., moving through Texas Wednesday night, maybe a nighttime squall line in East Texas, and then things shift eastward. And it does look like a lot of that moisture comes up north. So I would not rule out severe weather in Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. So all of this area is going to have to be watched pretty closely. So Thursday, yeah, that's the big one. And then Friday, enough of that should move out to the coast and start shutting things down. And then for the 18th, 19th, and 20th, nothing big, just kind of some air mass recovery in Texas, some cold air lurking up to the north. You can see those 240, 250 Kelvin temperatures in Ontario. And it looks like maybe by the 20th and 21st, some of that comes south. So that bears watching right there. That could be another push of cold air coming down for the 21st, 22nd. That could be our next big weather change. Let's take a quick look at the temperatures around the 18th. This is in Fahrenheit. You can see a minus 30 area coming down into Manitoba. It gradually works down into the Winnipeg area for the 19th and 20th. A lot of minus 10s to minus 20s showing up. And that's the last frame that I have there. Minus 20 into North Dakota and the 0 line into Minnesota and South Dakota. This is really picking at nits here. This is pretty far out. So a lot could change between now and then. You can see there's not a whole lot of extent of Arctic air. So this is really not going to affect anybody except the Great Lakes, Midwest, northeastern U.S., eastern Canada. I don't see that coming down into the southern U.S. unless there's a big change between now and then. And some other big news coming out of New Zealand. Auckland had some record rainfall about 2 weeks ago. They got 9.44 inches, which is the most they'd ever seen in one day. And that's the equivalent of how much they get in an entire summer. And it looks like more trouble's on the way. A rare tropical cyclone will be making its way down to that area. That's it right there. That'll be reaching the North Island on Sunday going into Monday. And they're expecting hurricane conditions. It's going to be probably closer to Category 1 as far as the Saffir-Simpson scale. But the rainfall, that's going to be the big story, another 5 to 10 inches. And that will basically work its way down along the eastern coast. Let's get a closer look at that. So we go to Friday night. The wind field starts affecting the island. We go into Sunday and then Monday. And that's our big storm there. And for those who are accustomed to forecasting in the northern hemisphere, this is a trick that I've used. You basically flip the chart, and then it looks like how things do in the northern hemisphere. So if it was hitting Florida or East Coast, this is kind of how it would look. So you can see it has a lot of similarities to a October or November hurricane passing maybe the Carolinas, Cape Hatteras, the same basic setup. So that's the coast right there, the storm coming out of the so-called southwest and throwing all that rain and precipitation and wind inland. So the mountains that face eastward, those are going to be the heaviest hit areas. Going to get that combination of orographic lift, convergence, and so on. And then by Wednesday, we see an improvement as cooler, drier air filters into the North Island. And that's all I've got for this edition of Forecast Lab. Hope you all have a great weekend. Take care, and we will see you on Monday for the supporters and Wednesday for everybody else. Have a good one. Bye-bye.